say before I start, I want that music to play every time I walk into my classroom. You'll understand why in a little bit. Okay, we'll go ahead. So before I tell you about my secret life this summer, I want to tell you about my life and my passion. I fell in love with textiles and fibers when I stepped into my first weaving class years ago in graduate school. It was a moment that can be described as, where have you been all my life? It was challenging, relaxing, and quite meditative. Weaving came naturally to me. I loved the way the loom worked, the intricacy of this system of taking separate fibers and using this amazing tool of a loom to create cloth. It all made sense to me, and from the very beginning, I got it. This was one of the last official college courses I had as a student, and it was amazing. So for the last 10 years, I've had the opportunity to reverse this role and teach weaving to hundreds of students. I've introduced students to the complexity and reward of this creative medium. I've had a little bit of frustration because although weaving came naturally to me, to many it doesn't. This may look beautiful to you, but this is a little bit of a nightmare in my classroom. So for the last 10 years, I've had the opportunity to, So after years of being the one to teach, this summer I did something that would put me in a position of a student once again, a role that I thought was behind me. To fulfill an artistic goal I've had for at least 10 years, I registered for my first official art course since graduate school, Metals 101 at Brookhaven College. I was assigned a student number, paid for my summer course, and made sure I was prepped for my first day. For 5 weeks, my medium would change from textiles to metal. I stepped into class with a little bit more confidence than I probably needed, because if weaving came so naturally to me, why shouldn't pouring molten metal do the same? I decided that it would go incognito. No one other than the professor needed to know that I taught at UNT. Honestly, because who knows how this would go, my choices ranged between the good, the bad, and the ugly, and just in case things did not go as spectacular as I had planned, I didn't want to be the failing professor in class. Beginning my very first day, I truly felt that I had stepped into a void where my basis of knowledge was nil. My first day was quite a humbling experience. As we set up for our first pewter pour, I missed and missed and missed again. To my dismay, this did not come easily. Hitting a 1/4-inch hole while pouring hot metal out of a crucible is not easy. With the intention of creating cast metal woven cloth, I sacrificed several hand-woven pieces, coated them in wax, attached red branches to prep them to be transformed into metal. But all along the way, things weren't easy. This image was taken just before the wind decided to blow them off the table, essentially breaking each one to varying degrees. Pieces snapped off, fell to the ground, they snapped off again, you name it. Little did I know that through this class, my assumption that things would go my way, would come easily and successfully, were challenged every day. I knew I was capable of succeeding, but that was often and regularly thrown into question. I would come home beat, both mentally and physically, from the expectations I set, the physicality of the work, and the frustration mixed with anxiety that lingered from one step to the next. Because of the experimental nature of this work, I was continually fixing failures from one class to the next. My plans had a hard time ending in the results that I wanted. So about halfway through my course this summer, I had a moment of, aha, this must be what my students feel as they come into my classes, as they encounter struggles in my classes. And as simple as this concept sounds, I never really took a step back to consider this. So if you think about it, stepping into class for the first day, they know nothing about the subject they are expected to succeed at and are unsure whether it will be a bumpy or smooth journey. I'm responsible for teaching relevant information in our field of study, and just as importantly, how to help navigate the failures and frustrations that will most assuredly happen. Until this summer, I forgot what it felt like to be a student. So I did something a little scary. I decided to ask a former student to reflect on a time in my class that she struggled, how she felt, and what she learned as a result. I also asked how faculty or I could better support that learning, and she provided photos. Katie said, I'd managed to go my entire weaving career without any issues with difficult warps. When I finally ran into this one, it was absolutely a learning experience. Every weaver should have to deal with at least one nightmare, because it teaches you how to problem solve. I don't think faculty needs to do anything more than answer questions as students bring them up. So Katie's key to successful weaving was having open and accessible faculty. However, another conversation this summer showed me that how accessible we may think we are and how students perceive us may be vastly different. While working with the UNT Dye Garden, several students and I decided to create a gargantuan indigo dye bath. This put each one of us in the role of a student. As we worked, one of them said to me that I seemed more like a real person to them. And that caught me off guard and caused me to think, why is this important? She further explained that during the previous semester, she struggled a lot in class, but was too timid to approach me for solutions. It occurred to me that by being transparent with my concerns as we worked on the indigo vat, it allowed her to see that I was nervous at times, I was anxious for it to turn out well, that I didn't always have every answer. They may have seen in me some of what they as students experience in the classroom, and that made me more accessible to her. I feel that I learned more as a struggling art student this summer than I ever anticipated. Because of my challenges in class, I was able to reach out to students and start conversations that I hope will continue to drive me to be a better teacher, to support diverse learning in the classroom, and find ways to be more open when students run into their own struggles. Many times our students don't see us as failing, struggling, or as a real person. I think this was an eye-opening realization for me and one that will continue to inform how I approach my classroom. I think it's important for all of us in this room as well to remember our struggles as students. I believe it helps us relate on a level that allows us to be more accessible when they need us. So in case you were wondering, I eventually found success in my medals course. I was able to push through the failures and come out with work that I'm proud of. So when I see this work exhibited, I'm always going to remember every single lesson I learned this summer as a struggling art student. Thank you very much.